Is Dave Chappelle right and LGBT can be the feared gay mafia? When Dave Chappelle came out with his Netflix special, The Closer, the LGBTQ plus community was taken aback by the large amount of transphobic content. Everyone from GLAAD to the National Black Justice Coalition called for Netflix to remove the special. On Thursday, the comedian spoke to his sold-out Hollywood Bowl crowd saying, quote, "If this is what being canceled is like, I love it," end quote. The line about being canceled received rapturous applause from the audience, which included celebrities like Brad Pitt, Tiffany Haddish, Donnell Rawlings, and others. Terra Fied, a transgender Netflix employee, tweeted that the community wasn't offended, but that, quote, "What we object to is the harm that the content like this does to the trans community, especially trans people of color, and very specifically, Black trans women. People who look like me aren't being killed. I'm a white woman. I get to worry about Starbucks writing T-A-R-A, Tara, on my drink," end quote. Terra has since been suspended by Netflix because of that tweet.
So this was the last of his, what, 3 specials for Netflix, right?
I think
3 or 4?
I think 4.
Okay, and I've seen 3. I didn't see the closer, and then when all this news came out, I was like canceling him automatically. And I've loved Dave Chappelle forever. You know, I've done some stand-up myself, and I've always respected the craft, respected his genius, and loved him and followed him. And then I even didn't take much offense to all his gay jokes and all that kind of stuff. But then he came out with the turf thing, and it totally threw me off. And I said, hell no. I'm not going to watch this last episode. But now I want to watch it because maybe we are catching it out of context. I also heard him say something like, you can kill a black man and get away with it, but you can't talk about the gay community because then the mafia aspect comes out and we cancel your ass. Does he have a point there?
I think he has a point because we are kind of like the cancel culture. But I think what Tara was trying to point out is that there are some people that are damaged by his words. I would like to see him, support a transgender organization or, an LGBTQ youth organization. But,
But does he have to?
No,
does he? I mean, he doesn't have to do any of that. He helped the baby out with, his proceedings for all his derogatory stuff that he said about us. Nora, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I mean, at the end of the day, he's a comedian, right? A lot of the stuff that you expect to hear from him is going to be offensive. And if you look at his history of past skits and his Dave Chappelle show that ran for a long time, I mean, he had some pretty derogatory things to say about his own community. And we didn't see this outroar or this outrage of African Americans coming to say cancel his show because of all this derogatory stuff. I mean, he had the black white supremacist. He had other shows that really attacked his own community. So quite frankly, I haven't seen it. I'm interested in seeing it. I did see one of his Netflix shows where he talks about the LGBTQ plus as the alphabet people. I don't know if any of you saw that. And he was poking fun of R. Kelly and Michael Jackson and things like that. And at the end of the day, I think we have to take things somewhat lightly. But I don't disagree with what Cindy is saying, that ultimately, his voice, he has a platform, right? And people are listening to him. And there are some of the things that he is saying obviously are offensive. And some people don't see it as comedy, but as actual truth. So
I'm curious to what y'all think about the point that he makes. If you haven't seen the special yet, overwhelming majority of the content time of this special is on the LGBTQ community and the trans community, overwhelmingly. His point, however, is that he's not homophobic. He claims it over and over again. He makes jokes about the LGBTQ community, claiming he's not homophobic, but he makes jokes about virtually everyone and everything.
Yeah.
And frankly, he's genius because he's cutting you like a knife and you're not even realizing you're bleeding.
You're still smiling.
You're smiling.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, he tumbles into the trans area in a complete different way.
Right.
His point, however, is that he's jealous of the LGBTQ community and says so in that his community, the African American community, has not progressed at the same speed or strength as the LGBTQ community. And he makes the point repeatedly that he misses the Stonewall gays. And he's making the joke that the old-fashioned gay rights advocacy, he missed that and he understood that. But that the new LGBT advocacy is to cancel and to be mafiosa in terms of their approach. What do you think about his observation that we are secret ninjas?
Well, I think it's kind of an oxymoron if one looks at it in a certain way, because he's actually giving kudos to the LGBTQ plus community, like they got it going on. So at the same time he's digging, he's really praising. And I don't know if it's a sense of envy at how
he's jealous, just like outside.
Well, you know what?
So I think he's actually it's a way of spurring his community, or how his community might be viewed, into the same kind of action.
I would also say, though, that many of the rights that the LGBTQ plus community has worked for and achieved, not to say that, you know, the people of color in this country aren't horribly discriminated against, but many of the rights that we've achieved are rights that everyone else already had. So from that standpoint, I mean, we've been successful in securing them, but I think what concerns me the most, and, you know, I felt this was from his heart and not just comedy, is him siding with J.K. Rowling.
Him saying that he was a TERF.
That he's a TERF, and that, you know, that I don't think was comedy. I think that was from his heart.
And that was also very dangerous, because
Very
we're saying that you're a TERF, you're basically saying that trans women are not women and that they are violent and dangerous.
Exactly.
Okay? And that putting that information out there in a platform that big is dangerous for our black and brown, women, trans women out there.
I come back to the question of the observation that he makes. Your point, your soundbite on TERF is crystal clear. He's very clear in this special. Gender is male or female. There are no other genders. And he makes that absolutely crystal clear. And that's when he draws the connection to J.K. Rowling. To the point of his opinion on that, do we cancel him for his opinion on absoluteness in terms of gender? That's the point he's making. That the LGBTQ community has grown so powerful in our influence in elite society that he's a target to be canceled because he believes gender is this.
Look at all the LGBTQ plus community right now watching his special, talking about Dave Chappelle when we wouldn't beforehand. It's genius. It's freaking genius what he's doing.
He wants us to try to cancel.
But the reality is that how sad is this? We can't cancel Dave Chappelle.
Right.
We don't have that kind of power. LGBTQ, we have power, but not that much power. We're not going to be able to cancel him. His fans are huge. His legion is massive. And we will not be able to cancel that man.
Yeah. He makes a point I've seen the special. In fact, I've seen it twice now. I've gone back and watched it again.
Did you not understand part of it? What was going on there, Al? Did you need a translator? You could have just called me.
You wanted some extra laughs.
I do, and again, please don't misunderstand this of acceptance or agreement with Dave Chappelle, because it is not. But the first time I watched it, I kept saying to myself that I'm watching genius. I'm watching Picasso paint.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's doing it verbally. It is that level, but just for everything that I don't agree with, but still recognizing the genius. He is doing something that is challenging us to the core. Unlike, let's face it, and others here at the table. I've been around LGBT for a long, long time.
Right.
I've never seen an attack like this. This is so sophisticated. This is not Tucker Carlson and Laura and Sean. He would wipe them out.
That's a great
and be way more powerful than their three voices, because he's doing it in a way that he's just literally killing people.
Yeah, and I think he's making it much harder for people in the black community to come out. Regardless if they're LGBTQ or whatever. I think that he's making it more dangerous.
One last point that I want to bring to your attention, if you haven't, and in watching the special, He has a friend that he claims is a friend, is a transgender female comedian that opens for a show, and it's getting very little coverage, but it's the last quarter of the show, and she did very poorly, but then she sat in the front row, and they engaged through his segments of the show, and he says repeatedly the crowd loved her, but it was in the interaction between him and her. But he makes the joke over and over again that she was horrible, that she was crap in her stand-up set, and that she came to defend him, that he was not homophobic and he was not transphobic, and makes the point repeatedly that our community crushed her post, and within 5 days she stepped off the roof and killed herself.
She committed suicide. She couldn't deal with the backlash of all that.
Deal with the backlash.
Wow.
Of it. And he uses that as an illustration point in this comedy special to prove in some weird
genius way, Al.
to kill me as I'm watching him.
Wow.
What do y'all think about that approach? I've never seen anything like it.
I think that there is way too many people ripping people down in social media, and regardless of your age, that can be debilitating to someone who may have some, even a little bit of mental illness or depression. And, there's one thing about saying, I wish you didn't do that, but some of the things we all know, some of the horrific things that people say on social media.
This isn't the last that we hear of this. I wouldn't be surprised, Al, if they give him an extra special. Okay, they give him another special because this is catapulting. This is putting him in the news again. He has been a little turned off since the last time he checked himself into a crazy place.
He points out in this special that his voice comes from an authentic place, and the proof is what he did in terms of walking away from the Dave Chappelle show. That it cost him $50 million to make that decision. But he makes that observation to prove his observation about not being homophobic, and what he is saying is truthful. It's very difficult to argue the guy walked away from $50 million and therefore this is truth. They don't equate with each other, but it was a very powerful observation that he makes on the stage. I agree with you. We're likely going to be talking about Dave Chappelle and the sophistication of what we've watched and the harm of what we've watched. We're going to talk about it a lot.
Yeah, is he an ally? I don't think I'll call him that. How about that? All right.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.